Welcome to Living Simply Lower. Today is the second session of motorcycle trip planning with the Lowers. Today we're going to go from Columbus, Ohio up to Loudonville, Ohio, and I'll show you some cool stops in between. Let's do this. About a mile outside of downtown Mount Vernon, there's a park called Ariel-Foundation Park. And the park sits on land that used to be home to the PPG Glass Company factory. The factory closed down in the 1970s. And in the 2010s, the city decided to build a park at this location. The highlights of Ariel-Foundation Park are the River of Glass, there's a Tree of Life labyrinth, the Coxley Building ruins, and the Raston Observation Tower. Next stop, downtown Mount Vernon, where we will stop at the dog fountain. This fountain has 18 different cast iron dog breeds that spew water towards an elevated golden bone. Yeah, gotta see this. The furthest north we'll go on this day trip is Malabar Farm. Malabar Farm was built by Louis Bromfield. Bromfield lived in Paris in the late 1920s, where he became associated with many of the figures of the lost generation, like Ernest Hemingway. While in Paris, he won a Pulitzer Prize for the third book he wrote. Then, in the 1930s, he moved back to the U.S., and he built Malabar Farm around 1940, and he worked to revitalize his farmland using sustainable agriculture. He was a screenwriter in Hollywood, and he knew many elite actors of the day. In fact, Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall were married at Malabar Farm in 1945. I've always wanted to visit Bromfield's Malabar Farm, and it's a perfect distance for a day trip on our motorcycles. On the way back home, the next stop is Landoll's Mohican Castle. This is a luxury hotel and restaurant, but you can stop and walk around the property to see the amazing castle. Bob and I have actually visited this location before, and I'll put a link to that video down in the description box. From the castle, we'll follow the Wally Road Scenic Byway to cross one of Ohio's covered bridges. Then we'll take Route 62, which is a beautiful ride through countryside and farmland and winds through several small towns. Of course, you can't go through the small town of Utica without stopping at Watt's Family Restaurant for a piece of pie. My advice is to take the pie home for later and to stop at Ye Olde Mill to sample some velvet ice cream. Ye Olde Mill sits on a lovely property with a pond, and there's lots of outdoor seating options. And there we have a great day trip for this spring. The trip from Columbus, Ohio to Loudonville and back to Columbus is about a 3-hour round trip. And we've scheduled 6 or 7 stops in there, depending on if you want ice cream or pie. So hope you enjoyed. I'll leave the addresses down below, as well as the link to the Landoll's Mohican Castle video. Have a great week, everybody.
This message is Bob Lauer approved.